Welcome, welcome. I'm going to invite us all just to close our eyes, to feel into the innate goodness, the love, the compassion of your own heart space. And together let us shine our lights, our heart, our love in the direction of Eastern Europe, inviting there to be an end to conflict, into war, into violence. May peace prevail. God, give us the strength to live in alignment with your truth, in alignment with your love. Help world leaders find peace, learn how to cooperate, and live in alignment with your will, Lord. We invite the highest outcome. We ask that you are with all the refugees, with the soldiers, with the leaders. Bless them all, Lord. Fill them all with light and love. May they put down their arms. May they rebuild their homes. May they find peace again. Please, Lord, we ask that you fill our world with a great light of compassion. We're not wanting more war. We're wanting love. We're wanting light. We're wanting compassion. We're wanting to spiritually awaken here on planet Earth, Lord. Please give us the strength. Fill our hearts with the highest. This is our prayer. Amen. Okay, well, welcome everyone. And for any of you who have turned on the news in the last 11 days, you've seen what a great tragedy is happening in Europe. It's truly, truly heartbreaking, truly heartbreaking. And so I invite you to continue to pray and to shine your heart, do anything you can to send love in that direction. Our world needs it. Our world needs it. Okay. And so, like I spoke about, I'm going to be continuing with the different qualities of divinity that we can experience. And this week, I'm going to speak about illuminated mind. And this is something I don't speak about often. And one of the reasons I don't speak about it is because most non-dual traditions have a massive shadow in this department. And the shadow is that a lot of people will read books on non-duality and they'll understand the concepts of non-duality. And then they begin to develop this philosophy in their head. They parrot what their teachers say. The world is a dream. It's all an illusion. Nothing is real except for this. I've met too many people at conferences and retreats and non-dual circles who just say these types of things. I mean, there's people on Facebook right now on the Buddha at the gas pump page, quoting these things and arguing, and it's really unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate, but of course it makes sense. And as I've been speaking about these divine qualities each week, I speak about the true aspect of it, the direct experience. And so this week, the direct experience is having a Buddha mind, an illuminated mind, a mind that is made and represented by clarity, a piercing clarity and discernment. In the realm of Zen, this is the mind of Manjushri. It's very clear, direct, piercing. knowing. And so there's this type of thing. There's the true experience of the true essence of this aspect of divinity. But then there's also the human egoic aspect of it. So if you take that down like 10 notches, you have the egoic form of it, which is, like a scientific observing type of mind. That's really dry, that's dead. And if you take that down a notch, there's book knowing. Again, there's a dryness and a deadness to book knowledge. I was with my daughter earlier today, and I was with my daughter all day today, not just earlier today. But and we were all having lunch together, and we've been praying for the good people of Ukraine. And my little girl, in a sense, she's an only child because her older sister is like in college, and so she doesn't see her much. But and she's a little bit spoiled because she has two parents who just overwhelmingly love her and take care of her, and her needs are well taken care of. And she was being kind of sassy at lunch today. And Ani's mom was trying to explain to her, like, hey, sweetie, eat your food. And there's people in the world who are really suffering, who are at war and who are really struggling. And my daughter just kept acting up. And, then I stopped and I looked at her and I said, do you know what war is, sweetie? And she said, no, I don't know what that is, Dad. And, I was just shocked just by her innocence. Her innocence. She had no idea what war was. She had no idea what refugees were. In school, they take collections, and we give collections for the impoverished people in the Navajo Nation out here in the Ute Nation. And there's collections for her school supports schools in India for kids who are orphaned and this type of thing. But she really has no concept of what poverty is, what war is. And so I took a moment and I turned the TV on, and she only could watch for a couple seconds before she wanted just to play ball or something with her father. And so I was really reflecting on, well, what does it mean to know? As a spiritual word, gnosis. And with this mind, I'm speaking about illuminated mind, clarity mind. It's a true non-dual mind where you know through directly experiencing the thing, through being one with it. And through this experience comes a different type of understanding, where you know it in your bones, you know it in your mind, and you can actually speak about it with clarity, with wisdom. So the knowing, the thing known, the knowing of this, it's one experience. My teacher, he used to do this to me where we'd walk out into the woods and we'd just stand before a tree. And he'd ask me, what do you see there? And I see a ponderosa pine. And then he'd say, well, what do you experience? Can you go into the tree and be one with the tree and to know it directly, experientially? And that took me some time. And I felt the tree's strength. I felt its age. I felt its history. Felt the aliveness of it and the feeling of vitality, power, the rootedness of it in the earth. I remember just feeling like just the energy of sap, like the sugars, flowing through the tree, the feeling of aliveness through photosynthesis. And so that's much different than reading about photosynthesis, reading about ponderosa pines, when you experience it directly. And I thought, again, with my child, she can't know war. She has really no idea what it is we're speaking about. But as the TV was on, I saw this little 4-year-old kid pulling a suitcase, just wearing like all his snow outfit, his snow bibs and a big winter jacket and gloves, and just walking, and tears just pouring out of his eyes as he was fleeing his country with his mother, who's carrying a child on her hip. And as I looked into them, I didn't have any opinion about this or that. I knew what they were experiencing. So I wasn't in some kind of geopolitical commentary like the person on the news was doing. I burst into tears. I felt the sadness of this child. And I know that sadness. I know what it's like to be a parent with a child when you don't have enough, when you're having to pack up and leave. I know what it's like to not be able to console a crying child. And I've traveled in my life to war zones, and I've stood on mass graves, met with the parents of and the loved ones of people who were butchered, and felt the pain in the earth, the pain in the graves, the pain in the people speaking to me, and the poverty that it brings. And so this is a different type of knowing when we experience it directly. And this is a great quality that we all possess, that we have access to. But again, I have to apologize because as a teacher, often I tell you, ignore your mind and just come into your heart. Just ignore all the silliness, nonsense, the thinking up there, and just come into your heart, where there's a different type of wisdom in the heart. And again, the reason I do this is because, whenever I speak about this type of knowing, it's so easily turned into a philosophy. And then we start to make, like the classic one I speak about a lot is there's the direct experience of kundalini awakening, where light is coming into your body and it's awakening in you, and you know yourself as light. And then there's, like in the yogic schools, the science of kundalini awakening, where you're taught to say a mantra and do these particular asanas and stand on your head and do this pranayama and this type of thing. And most of the time people just get lost in the knowing and the different levels, the grasping at experiences they've read about in a book. Again, this is philosophy. This is dogma. Whereas this different type of knowing requires that you put down all knowing first. You allow yourselves to be empty. Empty. Now, most human egos who have powerful minds, I hate to say it, are quite arrogant. And they're also quite scared. If you ever hung out with intellectuals, you'll see that an intellectual can speak about an engine or religion, a war, a conflict all day long. Speak about its history, its roots, how it will probably end and all this type of thing. But there's no connection to the actual thing. No connection. And so with gnosis, with true knowing, with having a spiritually illuminated mind, your mind is empty and the heart is open. And you know through experiencing directly. Through experiencing directly. Not through talking about it, not through thinking about it in a mental way. But knowing is through experiencing directly. And then oftentimes there can be a contemplating and a reflecting upon experience. And it's said in many traditions that in order to be truly awakened, to be truly enlightened, one has to actually understand their experience. So there's the experience, and then to be able to understand what is here. And so it takes this type of mind, and this illuminated mind, to actually understand. And then you can speak about your experience with authority. With authority. Now, I've seen this, again, a mimicking of this, an approximation of this is, again, you go to a retreat, you really like what the teacher says, maybe you have a big experience, and then you come home from the retreat and you parrot what the teacher said, telling all your friends, I'm experiencing non-dual awakening. I'm experiencing, prajna. But you're not really, you're just parroting what the teacher said. But when you go on that retreat and your heart opens and you stay with the direct experience of your heart opening, an insight is pouring out of your heart. This is prajna. And when you stay with your experience and you know it and you understand it, then you feel nourished by this source. And then you speak about it. Well, that again is something quite different. And so in many of the traditions, because this has been such a disease, this parroting what the teacher said or just having a philosophical orientation with no connection to the thing you're speaking about. Oftentimes a teacher will just be a little bit lazy and just say, get out of your head. And then again, like I do that, so just get out of your head, come into your body. Just ignore the thinking mind. Just ignore it. It takes someone of great maturity to be able to live and operate it from this type of mind. Because again, the trap, it's so easy to fall into arrogance. And the arrogance, it's actually a little bit silly, because whenever you sit with intellectuals, again, if you feel into them, oftentimes there's a fear of emotion, a fear of contact, a fear of being with the thing. And so they try to sit back and speak about it in a dry way and an aloof way. We could all, just play with a question. Like, how do you know the experience of snow? Like, how do you know it? Like, the only way any of us knows what snow is to go out and to jump in it, to play around in it, to touch it, to feel the coldness of it on your face, on your body, to stop and to get down, on your hands and knees and look at one snowflake and then another and another and another. And you experience snow on all these different levels. Like yesterday at my house, I had almost no snow. I had mud in my yard. And today, I got almost a couple feet of snow in my yard. And my daughter, she'll lay down in the snow and she'll make a snow angel. But again, like we can read about making a snow angel. But until we've surrendered ourselves and laid down in the deep snow and made a snow angel, you don't really know what that is, what that experience is like directly. You may just think it's a silly thing. A silly thing. And so another question I might ask you is, how does your mind mimic true understanding? How does your mind mimic true understanding? Have you ever caught yourself speaking about something you don't know? And especially in spiritual circles, this is really a thing that tends to come out in the masculine channels, of a lot of fellas. Not always, but they're tricked by their own egos, and their ego again is mimicking the truth. So I ask you, if you sit and you're humble and allow yourself to be deeply empty, how does your mind mimic true understanding? True understanding. True knowing. And you could smile a little bit if you've ever done this spiritually, where you thought, okay, I know what something is. I know what the Buddha's enlightenment is. I know what green Tara is. I know what Manjushri is. I know what non-dual knowledge is. I know that all is one. Oh, really? Like, has your mind ever mimicked and parroted these types of things? Another question, as we inquire into ourself and our experience. How has your intellect guarded you from experience? How has your intellect guarded you from the experience of life? Again, like, have you ever hidden behind something you act like you knew? Please, it'd be good to see some smiles here in the group of people, like, if you ever realized this or seen this within yourself, within your egoic nature, of course you have. Of course you have. And sometimes it's, we do this just from being naive. We say, I want to be free. I want to be free. But we're unwilling to pay the price for freedom. And we have no idea what freedom is. And so we're unwilling to pay for it. And we don't even really know what it is. We just want to feel good. But when our mind is clear, and there's discernment, we see clearly that freedom is not a feeling. And the payment to experience freedom is the willingness to be here totally, to feel, to open, to experience life without walls, to experience life without walls. Most people think of freedom, think they know freedom. I mean, it's just like a yoga retreat that never ends. You get the good organic meals cooked for you all day long, and you're staying at a place where they take care of everything, and there's no real bills to pay, and you're just kind of hanging out in yoga la la land. But that's not what freedom is. That's what the ego thinks freedom is. But is when we step into this illuminated mind, we see clearly without attachment, without emotion. By without attachment and without emotion, I mean those things are not leading us, they're not guiding us. There's the direct experience of being awake and aware and seeing in an unbiased way. In an unbiased way. And bias, if we look at bias from this illuminated mind, we see that bias almost always comes through conditioning and through fear. So we were taught something, taught to be a certain way, or out of fear. When there's no fear and no conditioning, when the mind is clear and empty, and you see something, you don't have a preconceived idea of if it's good or bad or right or wrong, it's going to hurt you, or you're going to get something from it. You see it for what it is. You see the radiance, the aliveness, the beauty. You experience the essence of the thing. You experience it with no wall between you and it. Between you and it. Now, for most of us, we have a superego that actually is continually putting walls between us and life, between us and another. I can remember when I first met my wife, we were driving over to Telluride, and I was going to go teach Satsang over in Telluride. And Telluride's way up in the mountains. So we were driving over, I think Lizard Head Pass, and there was this just beautiful lake. It's called Priest Lake. It's out in the mountains. It's, my God, just like such a picturesque, beautiful, one of the most beautiful places in the United States. And I was teaching just right on the edge of the lake, and we were driving there, and my wife said, "Oh, like I'd love to go jump into that." I said, "Oh no, like don't do that. You'd be crazy. It's a terrible idea." And she got so mad at me because she wanted to experience it directly. And I told her it's a terrible idea because it was going to be freezing cold, frigid cold. She's from California, so she didn't know too much about Colorado lakes. It's like these lakes, they never warm up. They never warm up. Now, after I've lived a little bit and opened more, and as I've made friends with the cold, like I'm the lunatic now that goes and jumps in ice lakes, and so, part of having this type of mind is living and maturing and opening and experiencing from a place of humility. From a place of humility. And realizing, yes, the only way to experience something directly is to be with that thing without walls. Now, I'm going to just assume here that there's a number of people in this group who think that, the former president, Donald Trump, is the biggest nut, the worst man who's ever ruled the free world or whatever. But I imagine if you ever just spent a day with him, you probably would have an incredible time. It'd probably just be fun and full of energy and full of light and pizzazz and intensity and wildness. I'm sure he'd just be an incredible person to hang out with for a period of time if you experience his essence directly. If you experience him directly, you say, oh my God, this is like one wild human being, full of life force and spunk and vitality and and humor, and it'd probably be an amazing experience. And you might find your own political views offended. Oh my God, like I have to surrender my own views and actually be human with another human being. Could I do that? And for those of you who have difficulty with your family or the brother or sister or father, mother, or child or whatever, like sometimes my child drives me crazy because she doesn't follow any of the rules. She's such a strong will. But if I join her in the direct experience of what she is, like we have such a great time. It's a wondrous time. I mean, a lot of times it comes down to like, I just, if I sit in a container and try to give my daughter rules, and it's just going to be a fight the whole day. But if I get on the floor and start wrestling with her and engage in some type of kinesthetic way where it's just, we're in our bodies, we're playing in the mud, we're jumping in the snow, we're turning up the music loud, and I experience the fullness of what she is. Without walls, without judgment. And so I challenge you to open yourself, to let go of preconceived ideas and allow your mind to be blank and empty. And from this emptiness, I invite you to see, are you just like a stupid, empty blob of nothingness? Or is there a clarity, a wisdom, an intelligence that comes forward in the space of the unknown? Yesterday, my little girl, she went to the movies with a friend. So my wife and I had a little bit of time alone. And so we went for a walk and we got a little something to eat. And she was kind of complaining to me. She's like, God, your mind, like you're so empty. She was trying to give me blueberries to eat so that my brain will work. I'm like, this is just how I am, sweetie. I'm empty. And a lot of times it drives her crazy. But together we were walking in this emptiness, and we stumbled into. I have a friend from Nepal, and he has a little gift store on Main Street, and we stumbled into his store. And I was looking at the different prayer wheels, that he had, and a lot of the pricing is a little ridiculously expensive, but it all goes to help. He supports these schools in Nepal and Tibet, so I'm happy to pay extra. But I was walking through the store, and we were getting ready to leave, and just out of the emptiness, I heard something speaking to me. And so I looked up, and I'm going to show you what I got here. This massive prayer wheel was speaking to me. And this thing, I mean, it's an antique. It's probably from somewhere in Tibet. And again, it was way too expensive, much more than I could afford. But it was calling to me out of the emptiness. And I looked at the price, and my egoic mind was like, oh gosh. But there was this direct knowing that it was meant to come home with me, to find a new home. A new home. And as I held it, as I touched it, as I connected to it, it began to show me these things about where its ultimate home is. And it's not here in this house. It's wanting me to build something for it. And see, when we open and we're empty, and we connect with life, you'll find that life begins to communicate to you. Life begins to lead you and guide you in a way that's much different than egoic knowledge or rational wisdom. I mean, rational wisdom is like, God, this thing is way too expensive and I should not buy this. And rational wisdom would tell me the vision that it was giving me is something crazy, and like put it back, put the hocus pocus thing back. But it takes humility, excuse me, humility to live in this way, where we surrender the thinking mind, the mental mind, and we connect and we experience and we listen and we receive. Receive directly from life. And we follow the wisdom and the intelligence of what's here. And see what life brings you. See what it brings you. Now, I will give credit here that like an example of individuals who live with this clarity of mind, be someone like the Dalai Lama, Sri Aurobindo, Hamid Ali, who created the diamond approach. They have these brilliant minds, and whenever they speak about whatever it is, they bring the very thing into the room. So they speak about love, and love comes into the room. They speak about compassion, and compassion comes. They speak about grace, and grace comes forward. They speak about piercing clarity, and you begin to experience this clarity within your own self. And so these are individuals who realized this to the highest level. And this is all a skill that we can bring forward. So if you watch news, like news stations, one of the skills that news commentators have is they bring stress and adrenaline into the room, and they get you hooked on that. They get you hooked on the stress and adrenaline, and they get you hooked on the story, and that you have to tune in and get all the details of this or that. And how many of us have stayed up till 10 o'clock at night watching the elections here in the United States? And there's the stress and the adrenaline and all the commentators, and they give them the play-by-play of each of the states, how they're voting and this and that. And it's like, what are you going to do? You voted once, and now the answer is going to come, but doing the play-by-play and being hooked into that stress. And so all of us have this gift we can speak in an angry way and bring anger into our room. We can speak in a loving way and bring love into the room. We can speak from our hearts with kindness and bring kindness forward. Kindness. And having this clear mind sometimes is the discerning ability to see, well, what's called for in this moment? What does the world need in this moment? What is this interaction that I'm having with my partner need, or my child need, or my boss? Like, what does it need? And this is different than codependency or being a pleasing person, but where you have this skill of feeling into the other, feeling into yourself, feeling into the direct moment of life, and calling forth love. Calling forth love. Imagine if the UN all got together. They actually are all together right now, the Security Council. They all just got together and they called forth love. All the nations. All the nations. They call forth love. They sat in love. They spoke from love. My God, what a world there would be. But instead, they're calling forth politics is what they're doing. I listened to the Russian fellow speak, and he's talked about the neo-Nazis and ridding Ukraine of neo-Nazis and terrorists. And what planet is this guy on? Like, does he really think anyone believes the Ukraine is overrun with neo-Nazis and terrorists? And as I reflected, I saw that the United States did the same thing with Afghanistan and with Iraq. Not the neo-Nazis thing, but the terrorist thing. My God, what horror. What horror one man can cause in this world through believing in war, believing in ego, believing in violence. So when we step into this mind is not disconnected from heart. It has objectivity, unbiased clarity, piercing discernment. It has humility and love and compassion. It has a strength. You have to be strong to see clearly. One of the reasons you have to be strong is because, gosh, there's so much violence and difficulty in this world. And there's also so much beauty in this world. Some people shut down to beauty. It's a confusing thing to me, but there's many people who shut down in the presence of beauty. To keep this type of mind open, we also have to be strong, not to fall prey to our own egoic biases and our judgments and our fears and our conditioning. We have to be willing to look at ourselves and say, is that, oh yeah, that is my conditioning. That's not the truth. I actually don't know what I'm speaking about. actually don't know. And so I will ask you, do you believe in your own knowing? Your egoic knowing? Do you believe in your egoic knowing? And can you be humble enough to pop some of those bubbles? Are you willing to put down your knowing and not know? Here's a fun one. How do you hide behind your knowing? How do you hide behind your knowing? Some of us hide behind righteousness. Behind arrogance. How do you hide behind knowing? Here's a fun one for spiritual people. Do you hide in books or in nature or on retreats? I can say I've done all those in the past. I've hidden just in, buried myself in spiritual books to avoid my life. I've run away to nature. I've gone on, countless retreats and avoided my own life. Wasn't the only reason, but it's definitely one of the perks. And is there a terror within you of surrendering your knowing? A lot of people don't do good with emptiness. And are you willing to drop through the terror, the fear, and be alone in emptiness and see what you find? See if you just dry up in an empty void, or maybe you might find a brilliant clarity arises and a love and a compassion and a deep connection with life. Many people, I've been on countless retreats, and sometimes when I meet a newcomer and the teacher says, hey, we're going to be in silence for 1 day or 10 days. You can look around the room and some people turn pale. They just freak out. Been on many retreats, like when the smartphone first came out, and teachers or organizations, myself, would say, how about we put the phone away? And people would freak out. Well, we put the phone away for a couple of days, like just no technology. Can you do that? Now I think people just assume that the phone is just an extension of their hand, an extension of their head, an extension of their mind. So people don't even say, leave that thing at home. You just assume everyone will bring it and have it on their body at all times. So what happens when you're alone? Do you think the whole time? Or can you allow yourself to be alone and to be empty and to be humble? And does an aspect of your consciousness begin to awaken, where you know things directly through experiencing them? And so anyways, all right, well, there's a couple of hands raised, so I'll take questions and yeah, Let's see what's here. It's here from Justina. Hi, Justina. Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Hey, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I just got back a little less than a week ago. So yeah.
Yeah.
um so I just wanted to say hi to you and the Sangha again, and um I missed everyone. I
Yeah.
did listen to your recordings while I was there. Um and um
Where's home for you now?
I'm actually traveling across the country because I'm moving to Washington State right now. So it's kind of a funny thing to come back from a retreat and travel and be
Yeah.
really in the world and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So what
So
state are you in right now?
I'm in Illinois.
Oh, in Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what would
Uh,
you like to share today?
well, I could really resonate what you're saying with about the clear mind and direct experience. And I've always had a bias for the heart and having experiences through the heart. And I
Yeah.
expected that from this retreat too, to have like more heart awakening, or, just, I
Yeah.
don't know. It was just kind of my idea. And I actually experienced like more up here awakening,
Mm-hmm.
and like really and I think it's real, so you can tell me if it's not real or not. But more of a just really like connecting with silence, really for the first time, even though
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about it forever,
Yeah.
and meditation and stuff, um, and it's and I never realized like how profound silence actually is,
Yeah.
and how like and how I don't know. It's yeah, it's really changing my life, and um, just like have like it connects me with like I can actually like rest within myself, whereas
Yeah.
like before I constantly it was the mind, and
Yeah.
I've been diagnosed with ADHD in the past and stuff, um, and and I keep on like wondering, is it going to go away? Is it going to go away? But then, even on this trip, I'm doing my practice, and it's still happening. It's
Yeah.
the almost like a sound of silence that I like drop
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
And
That's absolutely beautiful. And what you're saying is so true. It's funny. I speak about space and silence so much. And I look out at people and I can see the people who know that experience and who are experiencing it now. And then I see everyone else who's like, yeah, space and silence. Like, yeah, like whatever. Just like I just no connection to it. But when you feel into silence, when you experience it directly, it has a substance to it, a weight. Like it is an actual thing.
mm-hmm.
It's an actual thing. And it's a whole realm of experience. And the very fabric of our being is made of silence. It's made of other things as well, but it's made of silence. And when you begin to realize, oh, I am silence. Not only so silence is everywhere. So when you see silence is everywhere, there's a feeling of like immensity to it and freedom in it. But when you realize that silence is here, it is me, then the human body, the human mind, the human emotional nature actually becomes nourished by this substance. So utterly healing. Some people who have a lot of trauma, like their experience of their body is traumatized, or
Mm-hmm.
it's terror, it's fear, it's whatever. But when you experience your body as silence, it's like there's this profound depth. It has like a well-like quality, deep, almost darkness, but it has a radiant luminosity to it. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
it's wondrous. It's radically healing. And it's radically healing for people who have way too much energy in their body, like kundalini people. So kundalini people, I try to connect them to space and to silence. And, they're just like, I don't see space, I don't see silence. I just have all this energy and I'm going crazy. The energy is so loud that they miss the space in which the energy is arising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm even able like to connect with the silence even when there's noise around me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it better. So this silence better be bigger than the noise.
Yeah, and that's yeah, I just never realized it. And
Yeah.
also it's like really connecting me to the present moment a lot. And I was having during the retreat, like this wasn't the beginning of the retreat, of course, but some weeks into it, I started having like these visceral memories from childhood that were just like these simple ones of like sitting on a tree or feeling a breeze or
Yeah.
and because I was like starting to like connect to what that really feels like
Yeah.
again in the present moment.
Yeah.
And it like felt divine to feel
Yeah.
like a little child feeling just these simple things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. It's one of the
Yeah.
things that silence has an eternal quality to it.
Mm.
And, one of the things I've realized through awakening is that awakening is retroactive.
Mm.
I think that's the right word. It goes into the past. So it continues. Like people think of it, awakening happens like in this moment in history. But when you truly wake up, you begin to realize that this awakening goes into the past. And so then it'll remind you of all these times when you were deeply awake and connected to silence, connected to the direct experience of intimacy, which comes with silence.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. It's really a paradoxical kind of thing when you open to it.
Mm.
You see, oh, yeah, it was here. It was here when I was a little girl. I was here when I was a little kid. Like, oh my God, like, wow. And it's been here all along. Just when we're in our heads, we miss it, but it can be incredibly liberating and healing to the body, to the nervous system, to the psyche. When you see, oh, this has always been here, always been here. And like you said, the common mistake with silence is people try to manufacture silence through being in a place with no sounds. And again, like that's a good place to start, just to unplug from everything and to find yourself, like where I live, alone in the desert or alone in the mountains, and just to experience silence in this way. That really helps to tune you into it. It's like, oh, this is silence.
Mhm.
But then as you get really tuned into it and connected to it, one of the funnest things I've done is, like, if you ever been to a big concert, the day of the event, when the theater is empty, or the Coliseum or whatever it is completely empty. And then you notice, that you experience the Coliseum as just this vast, empty, silent space. And then when the band comes, when all the people come, when they're tuning their instruments or whatever, you notice that the sound can never fill up the silence. The silence is always greater. And the way we've been taught, we say, well, if there is sound, then that's not silent. Silent means it's the absence of sound. The silence is actually the space of all of life, of this entire, of all realms, is silence. And you see this silence, silence can never be overcome. Now the guys down at the like the car audio stores, they try to get the loudest speakers to make as much noise and sound as you can. But again, like the silence, it doesn't touch the silence. The silence is always greater. And it's one of the fun things with if you're a musician, or if you play loud music, you love loud music, is just feeling the immensity of the silence and trying to get the sound, the rock and roll, the music, the whatever it is, to fill the silence. And it just never happens. And it's humbling and it's paradoxical, but also it's like this fun thing that humans try to do, is allow their power be expressed in this immensity. And see, there's room for it all. There's room for it all. Room for it all. And that's where the freedom is the realization, oh, there's room for it all. This silence does not fight. It doesn't resist anything. It receives it all. And so it's a quality of non-dual awareness. It's a quality of what we are. And so beautiful. Well, so nice to have you. Anything else you want to share?
No, yeah, it is just a beautiful thing. Like, I don't know, I'm like so grateful for it. And there is just like this great divinity about it. And I used to think like, oh, silence is boring and stuff. I'm not really interested in when people are talking about that.
Well, when you feel the substance of silence, all of a sudden it's not boring anymore.
Yeah.
It's so intoxicating. It's massive. It's massive. It's intoxicating. It's nurturing, and you see that it's not dead and empty void. It has a subtle radiance to it. It has a subtle ananda to it. That again, like if we're too much in our head and not experiencing it directly, you won't feel that ananda. But if you're in your heart and you experience it, you see that, oh, silence has very subtle quality of ananda to it. That's, again, so utterly nourishing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, beautiful. So nice to have you today. Yeah. And welcome back.
Good to see you. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Much love. Okay. Bye. Okay. Just looking at the time. Just ask that the next questions are short, clear, and direct. Here's one from the chat. Can we experience Buddha mind simultaneously with egoic mind, or are they mutually exclusive? Oh, what a great question. Yeah, of course. Of course. So you can be in Buddha mind and notice a movement of ego coming forward. But if you're fully in ego, there's a good chance that you'll miss Buddha mind. And keep in mind, Buddha mind is here in all of us all the time. Like you're born with Buddha mind. You're born with this vast open clarity and emptiness. But for most of us, we quickly forget that because we have a nervous system that is so loud. And we listen to the loud nervous system and the egoic mind and the conditioned mind. And then the Buddha mind just sits in the background, just waiting. That's one of the reasons why when you truly wake up, it feels like coming home. Because you're coming home to what's always been here. And so can we experience them both at the same time? Yeah, but again, like the question always is where are you identified? Where are you aligned? Where are you living from? So if you're living in your ego and it's like in an utter state of fear, and you're just getting like little glimpses of Buddha mind, like what does that do for you? Not much. But if you can fall in love with that Buddha mind and surrender to it, And then from Buddha mind, you hold the fear. What you'll discover is the fear will eventually run its course, and you'll just be left with Buddha mind. Now, some people will play this game where they have a philosophy of Buddha mind, and they're in their ego, and then they can speak about the philosophy and say they're in both. But again, that's just the ego speaking philosophy. As long as when you speak philosophy, you can feel like yourself into some flowery states of consciousness. Normally, when you really open to Buddha mind, it's intoxicating, it's overwhelming, and it's really hard to keep up your egoic nature. It's hard for there to be both of them at the same time when you really step into it. And one of the great things about Buddha mind is it dissolves untruths. It dissolves falsehood. There's a funny thing that happens. A lot of members of the Sangha have shared this with me, that they're beginning to wake up and they're realizing those old aspects of mind are being erased or being dissolved. And it's like you can't find those places within you anymore. The ego literally begins to dissolve and empty out of you when you step into Buddha mind. Okay. All right. Let's hear from there's a couple questions here, but I just asked a short, clear, and direct. Let's hear from Catherine. Catherine, are you here? You here, Catherine?
Yeah. Hi.
There you are.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, my internet went weird. I guess my question is, I feel like I definitely identified with like the arrogance of ego, for sure. I think that kind of, and I've seen it outside of myself, but I feel like where I'm dealing with it most right now is inside of myself. Like there's like thought forms with like a lot of energy behind them. And like today I kind of had the experience of like, just like even just like looking at the sky and it being really, really beautiful and having that bring up like this feeling of like so much anger and like disgust or like frustration with myself, or like, oh, like I couldn't possibly, like I'm not doing enough to like reflect the beauty of nature like back to itself, you know. And I really just felt a lot of sadness and pain and resentment towards myself about that. And I guess I just kind of am interested in like how to, oh, and again, even as I'm saying this, like my heart's racing, you know, like
So
I'm really
let me ask.
about
Yeah, let me ask you something, Catherine. So say if you're sitting there with the sky and you see the beauty of the sky, and you feel some sadness come forward. Can you be with the sadness? Can you hold the sadness? Can you love it? Like, we don't need to judge that. Sometimes when we come into contact with such a beautiful thing as the big sky above, which is reflecting the silence and this immensity, can you let yourself be held by the silence and immensity? And can you let the tears come if there's tears? Can you let the sadness come if there's sadness? It's one of the things that happens when we begin to step into Buddha mind. All the places within us that are hurting, they rush to the surface. And they just like tears start rolling and the body starts shaking. And what I encourage you to do is just to stay with your felt experience. And that party that's judging, just to hold her too, and in a sweet way, in a loving way, in a gentle way, in a compassionate way. Just saying it's okay to put down judgment right now. And just to be, I'm going to use this word, and it sounds a little harsh, but just to be stupid simple. There's feelings here, we just feel the feelings. Like I'm stupid simple all day long. If something's here, I just feel it. I just open to it. I don't turn away. I don't judge myself. That's not something I can really do much anymore. And not to comment on it, but just to feel the tenderness of sadness. The tenderness of sadness. Yeah. Well, beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Okay. This is something we can all play with, is just to see. Oftentimes we have like a running commentary in our head, and we have an emotional nature that's doing its thing. But when you simply stop and just be with what's here, you notice, oh, there's immensity here, there's grace here, there's light here. And this light has room if there's sadness or if there's anger here. We just let it empty out. The sky is big enough to receive a volcano. The sky is big enough to receive tears of sadness. Yeah, so we let it all flow. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Now more than ever, the world needs you to share your heart, share your wisdom, share your gifts, share your beauty, share your beauty. And so much love to each and every one of you. Good night, everyone. We'll see you all next time.